Hello, podcast listeners. We know podcasts are a great way to catch up on a program that you may have missed on KSJE, and it's provided as a free service of this radio station. But you know, KSJE is now listener-supported, and so while you enjoy this podcast, we hope that you'll also take some time to join KSJE. Become a member today. It's quite easy to do. Just go to our website at ksje.com/support and pick the level of support that best matches your budget. Thanks again for listening. Here's your podcast. This program is supported by San Juan Regional Medical Center, who's expanding its services to offer low-cost blood screenings all year round, now offering walk-in convenience to get the blood tests you want when you want them. MyLabs, patient-ordered testing, is available in Farmington at the hospital's laboratory and the Outpatient Diagnostic Center on 30th Street. Also in Aztec at San Juan Health Partners Family Medicine at 120 Llanos Street. With nearly 20 tests available, there's an option for everyone. MyLabs, patient-ordered testing, a wellness service of San Juan Regional Medical Center. Let me turn to my guest who's here and made it through the snow this morning to be with me, and I appreciate it very much. Jeffrey Richardson is here, the curator of the Farmington Museum. Good morning.
Thank you for having me, Scott.
Thanks for coming in and for making your way through all the snow and what have you to get here.
It's worth it to get here.
Well, I appreciate that because you have some great exhibits to tell us about and some things that are going on at the museum. You've got a lot of new programs, and so I want to get right to it. The big one is the opening reception next week for this new exhibit, right?
We do. Next Friday at 6 o'clock, March 1st, we will be having an opening reception for our latest exhibition, Flamenco from Spain to New Mexico. This is an exhibition that originated out of the International Folk Art Museum in Santa Fe, and it traces the history of flamenco from its kind of regional roots as a folkloric dance and musical performance in Spain to in our own backyard here in New Mexico. So it really is a very beautiful exhibition. There's a lot of wonderful visuals. There's approximately 20 mannequins. There's posters, playbills, costume sketches, stage design information for when it was made its way to the theater.
Right.
We have it's roughly a 2,000 square foot gallery, and we have spent the last few days, once the exhibition arrived, trying to make everything fit in there.
Wow.
I mean, and it's not a problem that we often run into. And as someone who really likes stuff,
right.
I'm a curator who likes to see a lot of things on display. This exhibition is certainly going to fit that description, so I'm looking forward to it.
Very nice. And again, it's coming from Santa Fe.
Santa Fe International Folk Art Museum, and it's the first exhibition. There's been other exhibitions on flamenco before. This is the first one to trace its roots from Spain to New Mexico. So It really is very relevant for us. Talks about the role that flamenco and the Hispanic community has played in New Mexico in bringing that dance to our own backyard. And its popularity here in this particular region. So it's a fantastic exhibition. We're excited to bring it here to Farmington.
Very exciting. And have you gotten other exhibits from this museum before? Or is this the first one?
This is the first one that I'm aware of that
Okay.
we've gotten from the Folk Art Museum. And when we have, it's going to, as we mentioned, the public reception, which is open to the public and is free, is March 1st, Friday at 6 p.m. And we have a really great evening that night. We were going to have not only food, but we will also have a live performance. We will have a flamenco dancer. We will have a flamenco guitarist that will be performing throughout the evening.
Okay.
The curator from the International Folk Art Museum who put on the exhibition will be giving a gallery tour. So we have a lot planned for that evening. So I encourage people to come out. I've had people say to me, well, what is flamenco? Or I don't know much about flamenco. And, I was like that too. I'm a lay person when it comes to flamenco. I had the opportunity to see the exhibition when it was initially in Santa Fe, and just walking in, not knowing much about the dance or the music behind it, you learn a lot, but it's also an exhibition I think that people will enjoy without knowing a great deal about it. You don't have to be an expert. You don't have to be a scholar in this particular field. This is an exhibition that has so much to offer visually. There's so much to learn. One of the things that I really like to point out is there's going to be a dress-up activity for children, where children will have the opportunity to try on dresses and coats and costumes related to the art of flamenco. You'll be able to try out learning a little bit about the music and some of the instruments. So there's also hands-on activities. So I think it's going to be something that will resonate with people of all ages and all demographics.
And a really important history lesson and culture lesson, I think, too, for folks who come to see this exhibit, right? Because this has been such a big part of the Hispanic culture for years and years and years.
It is. And UNESCO declared flamenco a masterpiece of the intangible heritage of humanity. I wanted to read that to make sure I got that correctly. So this is, an art form that's known around the world. And I think learning a little bit more about it is very interesting. But like I said, like a lot of what we do at the museum, it's not something that you have to personally resonate with. I think when you come and see it, you will have a personal experience that will be quite wonderful. And it's free. It's a free exhibition. I want to thank the Farmington Museum Foundation for providing the support to allow us to bring it in and not have to charge. Of course, the city of Farmington as well.
Right.
So, it's because of their generous sponsorships we're able to bring this exhibition in. I think people sometimes don't realize it can cost a great deal to bring in these traveling exhibitions. And sometimes we have no choice but to charge a nominal fee to try to help recoup some of those expenses to bring those things here. But this is one through some generous sponsorship that we won't have a fee for it. So I encourage people to come out to the public reception on March 1st, and then it's going to open up our normal hours, Monday through Saturday, 8 to 5, beginning on Saturday, March 2nd.
Okay, and it'll be on display for how long?
It's going to be on display until June 1st.
Okay.
So roughly 3 months. We are actually in the midst of installation at the moment. That is why I am dressed the way I am.
You came from unpacking boxes.
And I will be right back to it.
Yeah.
This is the first time I've been in the new studio, and I'm a little disappointed that I wasn't able to kind of dress all up nice. So
That's
for
okay.
your Facebook and all of your other live followers, Scott,
we
can
have
attest.
a working museum. So.
Yes, and I can attest, having been on the show many times before, that Scott dressed this fantastic before it was broadcast live. He always looked great, and he is continuing to do that. So
Thank you,
I apologize for my appearance today.
No apologies needed. And it just, old habits die hard with the shirt and the tie. So what can I say? But it sounds like a fascinating exhibit. I'm looking forward to seeing it. And again, because it really rotates around New Mexico and that great dance coming to New Mexico from Spain. And I think there's been a resurgence of interest in this type of dance, like all ballroom dancing, with some of the shows on television and things like that. I think folks would be familiar maybe with seeing some of these dance moves in some of the mass media.
Absolutely. Dancing with the Stars is a notable example where they have certainly done flamenco before. Right. And I know down in other places, in Albuquerque and Santa Fe, there are studios that teach it. And there are people that travel around. The people that are going to be coming up performing for us, I believe, are coming out of Santa Fe and Albuquerque, respectively. So it's something that is, right here in our own backyard. And if we had a little bit more room, I would demonstrate. But
really?
Since we don't,
okay,
I'm going to have to hold off on that.
I can move a couple of chairs during the break.
Next
Jeffrey.
time, maybe next time.
All right.
Okay.
All right. We won't make you do it today, but that's exciting. And again, it's going to be opening next Friday. March the 1st is the reception.
The reception at 6 o'clock, and then starting that Saturday, the 2nd, we will be running the exhibition until June 1. And again, our standard business hours are Monday through Saturday, 8 to 5.
Right, and again, free to see. And but if folks would like to support the work of the Farmington Museum, you can always join the Museum Foundation, I know, or leave a couple of dollars donation when you're there.
They can do either one, and I always like to point out about joining the Museum Foundation. So becoming a member of the museum is our museum, if you join at a certain level, is reciprocal with hundreds of museums across the country. So basically, by joining our museum at a very nominal cost, you join hundreds of museums across the country. So if you travel, if you're going out of town, that museum membership may pay for itself in one particular trip. If you've got kids, if you've got grandkids, if you like to hop in the RV and you go to different places and you visit these cultural sites, our museum membership could pay for itself in one trip. And I like to point that out to people who want to know, well, what's in it for me? You're certainly supporting everything that we do as a result of joining the Museum Foundation. But you have a lot of tangible benefits as well by joining.
Sure. It's sometimes hard to show folks what's in it for them when you have a free museum admission and free exhibits and things like that. Sometimes when you do have those other exhibits that have a nominal cost, that helps too to get in to see some of those with your Museum Foundation membership.
Absolutely. And if we have the opportunity, we'll talk about some of the other things going on.
You
and
bet.
some of the things that we do charge for at the museum, we almost always provide a discount for museum members. So again, it really does start to pay for itself if you're involved, not just here in Farmington, but if you go to other places across the country, that museum membership can really pay for itself.
Very true. And I think I need to check, but I think I'm still a member, but I better check.
I will certainly check now
and renew if I'm not. So I better get on the stick here. I think I am. But anyways, a great thing. And of course, I'm a former foundation board member, and I can't say enough about the work of the Museum Foundation and the museum to bring these things to our community, because that's what museums do, really, is try to, one, tell the story of a community from a history perspective, and also industry and other things that make a community unique. We can see that at the Farmington Museum today with the Trading Post exhibit and oil and gas and some of the things that you brought to the community, but also bringing in these traveling exhibits to really, again, highlight some of the culture of our region.
Absolutely. And we've done a lot of exhibitions. Some of these, this makes sense. It talks about New Mexico, but we did one on shipwreck. Not a lot of shipwrecks in our own backyard.
No, right.
But what we
but
try to do...
very interesting nonetheless.
And what we try to do is we try to bring in exhibitions that will excite the general population.
Yeah.
That people will want to come in and see, that they don't have to get in their car and drive to Albuquerque to go see it. We really try to bring in some of those exhibitions that you would see in some of the bigger cities right here in Farmington.
Exactly. And I must say, too, when you do that, the admission fee, as nominal as it is still less than you would pay if you were going to see it in a museum in Denver or Phoenix or even Albuquerque.
Absolutely.
In most cases,
and
if not
those,
all of them.
And those fees, sometimes, we barely break even. I mean, we're certainly not making a profit. That's not what we do at the museum.
That's right.
We're trying to provide a service to the public, culturally, educationally, and we do that in a way, again, through the generous support of the city and the Farmington Museum Foundation.
Again, it's true. And I always like to give a shout out to the city because, again, it wouldn't be a no cost and no admission museum if it wasn't for the policies of the city of Farmington, I think, to keep it accessible to everybody.
And we get great support from the mayor on down. And they're very understanding of what we do. They're very appreciative of what we do. And we appreciate all of the support that they provide to us.
That's wonderful. Jeffrey Richardson is my guest this morning. He is the curator of the Farmington Museum, putting the finishing touches on the new exhibit called Flamenco, which will be opening, as we've been mentioning, next Friday with the free reception, March 1st at 6 p.m. with some great entertainment, the gallery tour, some live music and food and dancing, of course, at the Farmington Museum. And so let's take a short break, and when we come back, we'll talk more about some of the other exhibits that are already on display at the museum and maybe some upcoming ones as well. Back with my guest with more in just a moment right here on KSJE. The time is 8:25. KSJE is supported by San Juan Regional Medical Center, your community hospital with a rich heritage that dates back to before New Mexico was a state. We've been improving the health of the Four Corners since 1910. As a nonprofit hospital, San Juan Regional Medical Center is a values-driven organization. We strive to deliver on our mission to personalize health care and create vitality and enthusiasm in healing. We are here for you when you need us, offering a comprehensive range of inpatient, outpatient, and emergency care services. I'm Scott Michlin. Again, my guest who is here with me in the studio, who did brave the snow this morning to be here, Jeffrey Richardson, is here, the curator of the Farmington Museum. Once again, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me, Scott.
You bet. We've been talking about your new exhibit called Flamenco, which opens at a reception next Friday, 6 p.m., but that doesn't tell us about all the other exhibits that are currently on display at the Farmington Museum. And one of the ones I want to ask you about is Petroliana, which is the exhibit of kind of oil and gas related memorabilia, correct?
Yeah, that's the term that is commonly used by collectors to describe the collecting of things like gas pumps, signs, oil cans, and other things.
And who knew those could be collectible things, but they are, right?
They're highly collectible, highly valuable.
Yes.
I think if you turn on a lot of those collecting shows on television, the signs are the things they always talk about.
When they're going in the old garages, the old barns, and searching through stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah, right.
So you see that a lot, and we have a very fantastic collection at the Farmington Museum.
That's right.
Primarily came from one gentleman, who lives now in southern Colorado, Alan Hawkinson. He collected a lot of these things in our local area, in the Four Corners, and he donated them, partial donation, partial purchase by the Farmington Museum Foundation not too long ago. And we have them on display in our larger gallery. So if you walk in there, we have gas pumps, oil cans. We have a whole wall of signs, covers the entire wall. We have some really fantastic graphics that were done by our new exhibit designer, Paige. And this is an exhibition that probably will be running throughout all of this year. Mm-hmm. And we really wanted to make sure it was able to hold up for a year. So it really does look fantastic. And this is kind of an unofficial kickoff for us. That new gallery, as we kind of refer to it, was built and added to the museum to do a long-term exhibition on energy, the oil and gas industry, not
right.
oil and gas memorabilia. So we are doing this as kind of our unofficial kickoff to that. We're going to have that run for a year as we're developing the exhibition. We're putting it together. At some point, that gallery will have to close, and it's going to take, an exhibition of that size to construct will take several months, if not a year. So we're kind of targeting 2021 as an opening for that oil and gas energy exhibition. That is the 100th anniversary of the first commercial gas well here in San Juan County. So that's kind of our target date that we're looking, but this is a really fantastic exhibition that I think people will like. So we have flamenco coming up. We've got Petroliano, which will run throughout the year. We always have, of course, the replica trading post talking about also what's happening in our own backyard.
Right.
In the lobby, we have the back end of a World War I exhibition. We opened this in November of last year to coincide with the 100th anniversary of the end of World War I. That's going to run through the end of March, and then that will be going down. Then we're going to have the Four Corners Photographic Society coming up in the lobby. We also have a fiber art show later on this year in the lobby. Fiber art is kind of the latest quilt designs, and it's beyond traditional quilt work where they use applique, they use all sorts of different techniques that you wouldn't find in traditional quilt work to really tell stories. It's called Life Along the Rio Grande, where 30 artists from New Mexico, Texas, and Colorado talked about their experience or their perception of the Rio Grande, and they've created some really beautiful fiber artworks that tell stories. We're going to have that coming up. After the flamenco exhibition, we're working with another local artist, Stephen Barr, who's a local woodworker. Some of you may be familiar with his work, even if you don't recognize his name. Steve's work has been featured in several of our exhibitions in the past, including our annual Gateway to Imagination, the Handmade Group, and he creates some really fantastic pieces out of wood, both small and quite large. So some of the smaller things include lamps, cutting boards, things along those lines, but he also creates these wonderful Hadley chests, these tables. And he's never had his own show in a gallery. He's had, galleries, but he's never had his own museum show, dedicated museum show to his work. So when we learned about that, we started working with him, and we have a really exciting exhibition that's going to be opening late in June, and that'll be running at the museum through most of the summer. So we're looking forward to that as well. So always a lot of wonderful exhibitions going on at the museum.
Very exciting. And I do want to ask you a bit about the permanent energy exhibit, because that's what it's meant to be, right? That
Correct.
You talked about is the idea to install this permanent exhibit that will then kind of tell the story of the San Juan Basin when it relates to energy, correct?
It'll tell the larger story of kind of oil and gas, but certainly focus on the San Juan Basin. It's such a part of everything that we do here, our livelihood. So many people are involved in the industry here. It's really kind of what made Farmington what it is today, the oil and gas industry. So we're going to look at it. We want to explain what energy is. I think that's a rather abstract concept that a lot of people don't understand. They think energy is electricity or gasoline or oil or something like that. But we're really going to kind of explain what energy is. And, our primary source for energy is fossil fuels or hydrocarbons. That's what's really important here in our backyard, and that's the story that we're going to tell. So we're looking forward to telling that story, but it's a big undertaking.
Right. Sure.
I think people sometimes think, you just throw a few things on display, you make a few graphics, and then you have it. This is 7,000 square feet, which is a very large footprint that we are going to take, and we want to tell that story of oil and gas, and we want to tell the story of energy. We need to discuss things like renewables, like coal, and there's a lot shifting. The story of coal today might be different than the story of coal tomorrow. We, of course, know what's happening in our backyard with the power plant, and we don't know how that's going to play out. So, it's a very complex story. It's a very diverse story, and that's what we're working on now. So we're really making sure that we do all of the groundwork that we get that story right. Because I assure you, if we do that story wrong, we have the experts here that will be coming into the museum to let us know about that.
I think they will. That's very true. But that also means you have the experts to bring into the conversation of how to do it the right way.
Exactly. We have experts here at the college. We have experts in our own backyard that work in the field. So we're going to be putting together an advisory panel to help us tell that story. What do we need to tell? And we also are going to reach out to the general public. What do they want to know about? What do they want to hear about? Because they're very familiar with certain aspects of it as well. So do they want to know more about things that they're familiar with? Do they want to know more about things that they might not know about? Some technical aspects of the industry. So it's a large undertaking that we are starting to begin, but we're looking forward to it, and we're looking forward to getting that energy exhibition up. I know it's something that predated me here my arrival at the museum, and it's something that the community expects, and we're very much aware of that.
Very good. And I know a lot of folks may remember very fondly the other old permanent energy exhibit at the museum, which had kind of the Geovator,
which we still have. We actually we had it walled up, and we actually broke those walls down to check it the other day, and it was still up and running, and we got it working. And so that will be a variation of the Geovator will be in the exhibition as well,
which was very cool because it was an exhibit to take you physically almost underground to see kind of how things work with the energy industry and an oil well and things like that. Anyway, it's exciting that that's moving forward. And but in that space, in the meantime, you're using it for Petroliana and some other things, perhaps.
And I think people will like the Petroliana. I mean, right in the center, we have a early 1900s oil cart. I don't think people understood that, back in the day, the carts would drive around providing oil to businesses, to households. This was before gasoline really kind of became the driving fuel that we use today. So there's a lot of interesting aspects to it. And again, as with the flamenco exhibition, a lot of really wonderful visuals.
Nice.
A lot to see currently at the Farmington Museum.
Very good. We're getting a shout out this morning from the Downtown Farmington Association, who's saying hello to us this morning. So thank you for tuning in, and we love talking about things going on in the city of Farmington. So Downtown Farmington's another great partner we have in the community. So it's great to hear from them this morning.
And that's a segue because a lot of the programs that we do outside of the exhibition at the museum, and one of those is we do a downtown walking tour.
That's right.
We have a lot of history in our own backyard, and we do several times a year. We do tours of downtown. We go along Main Street. I think this year we're going to be doing one that talk about some of the historic homes that are downtown as well. So we have a lot of history in our own backyard. Sometimes we drive past it every day. One of the things, I do a lecture series, the Curator's Choice lecture series at the museum, The American West in Fact and Fiction, where I talk about different elements of the American West. Just this past Saturday, we did one on Remember the Alamo. And one of the things that I pointed out is Lloyd's Carpets. Downtown, that building was originally housed Alamo Motors. That particular building went up after the 1914 fire ravaged that particular block downtown, and they built the facade to look like the Alamo Chapel. So many people probably drive past that every day and don't realize what that is. Yep. So these are the types of things that are talked about in the downtown walking tour. And we have other really fantastic programs that go on. One of the ones I specifically want to mention is our museum adventures.
Right.
And they're adventures because they're educational adventures. And where we take people, we pack full of, we get a few vans, and we take people into various places throughout the Four Corners region. For example, this year, Canyon de Chelly, Upper Antelope Slot Canyon. We're going to do a winemaking tour of the Four Corners region. There's going to be a Navajo archaeological tour. So we do do these as a way to kind of bring people to places that they might not go on their own. There is a wonderful environment of the people of going to some of these places with other people, other like-minded people. We also do history hikes throughout where we take people to different places, and we do hikes ranging from 5 miles to 3 miles. If I get involved, I kind of go for the 3 miles. I'm not a 5-mile hike guy, but we try to bring the community to people, not just through our exhibitions, but also through our public programs as well, where we take people to a lot of the wonderful history and cultural heritage that we have in our own backyard.
And just like you mentioned about folks that may not realize the history even in just downtown Farmington of the historic buildings, the Lloyd Carpet, which is still there. You can still see the Alamo-looking building that's still down there, of course. But a lot of folks don't realize all these local hikes and interesting places to go right literally in our backyard or just maybe a few miles outside of town to go on and learn more about these areas and have someone from the museum or someone connected to the museum to educate us about what we're seeing and what we're experiencing. And that's the big thing about, rather than doing it yourself, you're going with someone who actually knows what we're looking at and can explain it to you.
And I often, tag along on these. These are put on by our educational department, and because I am just as fascinated,
sure,
as anyone would be. So I like going on the hikes and seeing some of these hikes. I've done a few up in Durango that I didn't even realize that they were right there. And the museum adventures, which they're a little bit more expensive. And again, if you are a museum member, there is a discount for that. Those are really fantastic because often we go with, or we go to a place and we provide a tour there. So we're using the expertise of the people here in Farmington at the museum, but we're also tapping into experts in other places as well to provide some of these tours. So they're great opportunities.
And what I understand is a lot of these sell out. You have limited spots, and so you're having to maybe add more of them throughout the year and do more. They've become quite popular, I think.
They really have. And if any of these sound like something, especially the museum adventures that you want to do, go to our Facebook page, go to our website, and sign up, because you're exactly right. A lot of these do sign up. Sometimes we normally start with 2 buses, which gets us roughly around 20 people. If those sign up, we sometimes add a 3rd bus, which kind of gets us up to 30, but there are limited spots available, and almost all of these do sell out. And they're really fantastic. Again, I go on them as part of the museum, but I enjoy them just as anyone else would because I learned so much about these places.
Yeah, and again, different locations, as you mentioned before. You're going to what types of places again this year?
Canyon de Chelly is coming up in March. Upper Antelope Slot Canyon. There's a winemaking tour in the Four Corners later this summer, and later this year there's a Navajo archaeology guided tour.
Wow. Very cool. And again, you can get all the information on the website or the Facebook page.
Absolutely.
For the Farmington Museum. What else is coming up, Jeffrey Richardson? We have a few minutes remaining this morning. You have some other exhibits that you're looking at to bring to town? Or
one of the things, I certainly want to talk. I mentioned briefly that I do a lecture series. That's something that I'm very excited about. And what I like to do is I have a educational background in Western history. I worked at a Western history museum for about a decade before coming to Farmington. I really love the American West. We are in the heart of the American West here in New Mexico. So my lecture series is the American West in fact and fiction, because when we talk about the West, you can't kind of separate the fact from the fiction. They often get intertwined. So we look at topics that are often some things that people might have a general familiarity about, but might not know the specifics of, or because of Hollywood or television, they've been skewed, or their understanding might not be complete. So we try to bring interesting topics. So just this past Saturday, we did Remember the Alamo.
Right.
On May 18th, and these are always Saturdays at 3 o'clock at the museum, we're going to do On the Trail of Jesse James, which talks about the James Younger game going all the way up into Minnesota in 1876 and attempting to rob a bank in broad daylight. And I don't want to give anything away, but it turned out to be an epic failure.
Whoops.
And their escape, or their attempted escape, really became one of the greatest kind of manhunts in American history, and we're going to talk about that. On August 3rd, we're going to do Cowboys and Cattle Drives. We got cowboys in our own backyard here, but really the great kind of mythic cowboy that we think about was as a result of 3 decades and the aftermath of the American Civil War in the late 19th century. So we're going to talk about those great cattle drives of myth and legend. And then we're going to end the year on November 9th with Into the West with Lewis and Clark. In 1803 with the Louisiana Purchase, the 8,000-mile trek that the Corps of Discovery went on to learn about and report back on this new area that had been added to the United States. So these are all topics that I think are very interesting. These are free. Our lectures are free, but our seating is limited. I think we had about 115 people at our last talk for Remember the Alamo. So I certainly encourage people to come, get there early, have a seat, and I don't want to use the F word over the radio, but we have a lot of fun. This is something. Yeah. Okay. So yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to scare you. I was on the button. We have a lot of fun with these. You know, they're very informative, but I try to take the topics and make them a lot of fun. Bring various elements, popular culture, history, historiography into the subjects, and it's something that I'm always excited to do.
And I imagine there's always time for some questions or answers. If somebody had a burning question about something related to your topic, they can always ask you and
absolutely. And
pick your brain a little bit.
We talked about a Texas story last week, and if you ever have a few Texans in a room, they will certainly tell you what you got wrong. They're not scared to do that, right. And had some wonderful feedback after the last one as well. And I enjoy meeting different people, and you always have interesting connections. We did one on Wounded Knee last year, and one of the gentlemen in the audience was actually a part of the occupation of Wounded Knee. He said, scroll back to one of those pictures you have up there, and he was in one of the pictures that I was showing.
Wow.
So, we have these connections, and it's really fantastic.
And again, that tells us, the importance of knowing our history and learning about our history and learning how history may affect even current modern day events and things like that. There's a famous quote, right? If you don't learn our history, we're doomed to repeat it, or something to that effect.
Exactly.
I didn't mangle it too badly, but
and these are interesting stories, you know, and the stories that we talk about are ones that are still at our forefront. I mean, Jesse James is someone that I think even school kids know about today, and it's interesting when we talk about the Alamo. That's another story that still resonates with people, and that was an interesting connection with Lloyd's Carpets.
Very much so. Very much so. Well, Jeffrey, it sounds like lots of things going on at the museum. Always great to visit with you and have you come in to talk to us a little bit. Anything else you want to add? Just remember the reception next week.
Remember the section next week. And Scott, if you'll have me back, I'm hoping to have my second book published later this year. It's on Howard Hughes' tenure as a motion picture producer. Once that gets published, I'd love to come back and talk to you a little bit about it.
That would be fascinating. And he's a fascinating subject. So I'm sure, can you keep it to just one book, or is it volume one?
I'm focusing specifically on his tenure as a motion picture producer. So kind of the craziness at the end, the aviation, all of those other elements, I kind of strip apart, because what I try to talk about is there was so much. He was such a Renaissance man, and his life kind of went so crazy at the end. We forget about what a groundbreaking motion picture producer and studio owner he was.
Very true. Well, I'll look forward to it. You would definitely have an invitation to come back.
Thank you.
You bet. Very good. Thank you so much. That's Jeffrey Richardson. He is the curator of the Farmington Museum, my guest here on KSJE. I'll be back with more in just a moment, everybody. The time right now is 8:51. $8:56 is Friday morning here on KSJE, and it's time to check in with Prep Sports and find out what's going on locally. Wally D is here from Wally D Sports. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for being here.
It was quite a...
You had a little challenge, Sean, to get here.
I did.
I appreciate that. And
fortunately, I have four-wheel drive. I went over a few golf course fairways and stuff.
Did you take a shortcut through the golf course?
I did.
Okay. Well, better. I'm glad you made it, so we won't worry about that other stuff. Anyway, but a big week again for Prep Sports, and you were just reminding me that you help schedule or do all the scheduling of all the officials for all the Prep Sports games.
I do. I do. For 25 high schools, actually, in the Northwest region, all the way from Grants, Gallup, and Farmington.
So if there's a snow day or something, that really messes with your spreadsheet, I suppose.
It really does. and what even makes it worse, this is the last week of district season, and so they want to get those games in.
Yeah.
Because the district tournaments start on Monday.
Okay. So what does that mean? So today we have another one, right? And so are we moving a lot of stuff to tomorrow, or what are you trying to do?
We've already moved a lot of stuff tomorrow. The Farmington PV girls game that was scheduled for tonight, it gets moved to tomorrow at 7 o'clock. So, that's a big game that they really want to get in because PV right now is sitting atop their district ahead of West Mesa. PV only has one loss in the district, which was to Farmington. West Mesa has two losses in the district, which was to PV, but if PV were some reason to lose to Farmington again, then they'd have to have a playoff on Monday for the district title.
Wow. Okay. It's a lot on the line.
So there's a lot on the line for
right?
tomorrow night. Yeah. So that's a big game. And like I said, Farmington beat them the first time, and I know PV doesn't want to let that happen. And plus, if PV wins, they'll definitely get a number 1 or 2 spot in the state tournament.
They'll make it. So
yeah.
Depending on how high they make it will be determined.
Well, what's
right?
amazing about that district is, there's 5 teams. Well, 4 of the teams, and you don't see this very much in the state, but where 4 teams are in the top 8 and are going to get to the state tournament, and all 4 of those teams will probably host a game.
Okay.
For the first round of the state tournament.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll be watching, right?
Definitely.
And what else should we be watching for?
Kirtland Central, they're going to win their district. I mean, even if they didn't play out the games, they've totally dominate Kirtland Central girls.
The girls,
I
right?
Gotta say.
Yeah. Okay. So they are a powerhouse.
They are a powerhouse. They're one of the top teams also in the state. They'll get a 1 or 2 seed in their what am I trying to say? Their bracket. Their bracket.
Okay. How do I know that and you don't?
How about classification?
That's there you go.
That's
I
was
the word
looking for.
Yes, sir. Okay.
Navajo Prep boys and girls will make it to this state tournament. Navajo Prep girls will get a high seed. They won. They've locked up their district too.
Okay.
So
we should be watching all these teams coming up this week. Then,
definitely
right?
so. And and if you want to go see some great games tomorrow, as we said, the Farmington girls and PV will play tomorrow night, 7:00 at Farmington High School. At 4:00 will be, or is it 3:00 will be Farmington PV boys matchup, which is more for pride than anything.
I see. Okay. And where's that going to be?
And that'll be at Piedra Vista.
At PV's gym. Okay. Gotcha. And state starts when then?
Well, state will start next week. Will be districts.
Districts.
So what they do is they take the 6 seed, will play the 5 seed, or if there's 5 teams in a bracket, they'll start on Monday or Tuesday, and they work their way all the way to number 1 will host the game. If there's 6 teams in, you got 2 teams that play each other, and then they'll play the 1 and 2, and then they'll play for the championship at the end of the week. So the following week is the first round of regionals, which is Friday and Saturday, and then the following Tuesday, which is the 12th, will be the start of the state tournament in Albuquerque.
I gotcha. Okay, so these are really important games, is what you're telling us, right?
That's right. Everything's important
as we get closer and closer. So very, very interesting. All right, and the best way for folks to keep track of these changes would be just the school's website or Facebook page, probably, because they're probably updating all their fans.
Yeah, I'm sure they are, and of course we try to do what we can.
You've got a Facebook page too.
I do have a Facebook, but I don't do those updates. But I do, a lot of interviews with coaches and stuff like that. That's been really popular. It's been a lot of fun. Coaches are great to talk to. Of course, I've always enjoyed that over the past 18 years to be able to have that access to coaches.
True.
And to promote their kids,
That's what it's all about.
Exactly.
That's great. Well, Wally, thanks for making it through the snow to get here today. I appreciate it very much.
All right. Whether it's hurricane, tornado, rain, or snow, we'll be here.
The show must go on. That's what we say. So have a great weekend.
All right. You too.
Thank you. That's Wally D from Wally D Sports, everybody. He's joining me every Friday to talk about prep sports and tell us what to watch for here on KSJE Farmington. Did you enjoy that podcast? We hope that you did. And if you did, share it with your friends. And if you really want to keep podcasts like this coming, please support KSJE. You can do it easily online at ksje.com.